Hi everyone, Warmthany Bed Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Brent Faiyaz record, Wasteland. This is a brand new LP from R&B singer and songwriter Brent Faiyaz, his second in fact. A project I was pretty excited to sink my teeth into, given everything I had heard about it said that it was more ambitious than Brent's very bland and meandering debut. And believe me, I needed a bit of excitement going into this thing, because truth be told, Brent is far from the boldest and strongest voice out there in the world of R&B right now. His shy and boyish vocal lines don't really leave much of an impression on me, nor do they come off all that alluring or passionate or heart-wrenching much of the time. His singing I found to be more mild than anything. Occasionally his vocal runs do remind me of artists like Sampha, for example, but they come across way less passionate in their delivery. And while the R&B landscape has changed pretty significantly over the past 10 years, with alternative, abstract, and homespun sounds being more dominant than ever, but even in this context, Brent's music to me has not smacked of anything more than average. So I was hoping Wasteland would be some kind of sea change moment for Brent. And while narratively this LP is definitely a flex, sonically it's still very disappointing. With this project we get a very loosely framed tragic love story where Brent gets his girlfriend pregnant, eventually ends up losing track of his priorities in the midst of fame and success and desire. Then at the end of the album she pretty much calls him on the phone and begins to threaten suicide, and things get even uglier from there. Now granted, this is a more gripping tale than most artists are willing to tell on record these days. Too bad it's spread over a very bland hour of music, though, on this album. So bland, in fact, it doesn't really complement the urgency and, I think, darkness of this story, as Brent slowly drifts away from this woman who clearly needs him after making her a ton of promises that he clearly was not ready to keep, which hangs kind of like a dark cloud over moments on this thing that I guess are supposed to be bringing some sensual vibes like All Mine, though I suppose on this moment there is an implied element of sinister selfishness a la The Weeknd, but it doesn't really quite have that bite or ominous atmosphere that Abel's classic stuff brings. We also have the sickeningly long-winded Price of Fame, which goes nowhere fast for 6 minutes, even with a very stark beat change around the midpoint. There's also Ghetto Gatsby, where Alicia Keys' near-whispered feature dominates far better than nearly anything Brent does on the track vocally. Even Drake and the Neptunes fail to breathe life into this very sleepy record, as the track they're featured on, Wasting Time, has some very bland perks, overly aggressive 808s, and one of the most average drizzy verses we've heard in a minute. Swear I'm more Purple Rain Prince than Prince Charming. The interludes and skits that move the flow and narrative of this LP along are pretty nice, but there are some songs on here that feel pretty much like interludes that overstay their welcome, be that Rolling Stone or Jackie Brown, even the track Fuck You Talking About. It's hard to tell what exactly is the right vibe or direction for Brent to move in for his music to really hit and resonate, become something more than just merely background music, as when the songs and production match Brent's very low level of energy vocally, these tracks really don't do much more than just be wallpaper. But then with Dead Man Walking, where the strings and some pretty hard-hitting bits of percussion up the ante a bit, Brent's voice begins to get lost in the mix pretty easily. Now, I will say Addictions and Role Model do take some pretty catchy turns on the record as the narrative of this LP turns darker and more egotistical. The glamorous keys on Bad Luck also elevate things to a higher level. And I will give it to the album overall. It ends a lot stronger than it starts, because we do have that very powerful closing skit on the record, as well as the track Angel, which is pretty eerie given how the way the record's narrative closes. But in my opinion, it's too little too late for an album whose most standout moment in its first 7 tracks is a Tyler the Creator feature. Overall with this LP, I'm very on the fence. There are elements of it that I think are very clean and serene, well produced, balanced, and put together, and overall, once more, I do like and respect the narrative that goes into this thing. But by that same token, the songwriting is one-dimensional, the vocals are one-dimensional, the lyrics are predictable. The performances are unmemorable and underwhelming. The features are mostly just okay and don't really add that much to the overall narrative of the LP. This is obviously Brent's large-scale attempt at doing something big, and the end results don't really end up being much more than just tolerable. I'm feeling a decent to strong 5 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Brent Faiyaz, forever.